As the prisoners slinked away from the firelight, the circle of creatures danced and hooted and gave in to their carnal instincts, creating a portrait of bestial hell straight out of a Bosch painting. All save two. The one who had worn the mask of the wolf walked up to the one who was a raven and knelt before it in humble supplication. The raven watched for a moment, thoughts and emotions held tightly behind the visage of its mask. This close, the illusion was much less impressive, and one could see the mask for what it was, a well-crafted wooden carving that only a truly twisted imagination could have dreamed of. After a time, the raven tilted its head, as if listening to the wind, and then stretched out a hand to the shoulder of the wolf. The creature's face was raised, its wooden features unsettling in the firelight, a nightmare too determined to terrify to be driven by wakefulness. And then it stood. "Is it done?" the wolf asked. "Your sacrifice has been accepted, and the man has eaten the forbidden meat," the raven replied, waving a hand at the back of the left leg of the wolf, which was bandaged tightly from mid-thigh to knee. "Does it pain you?" "Your medicinal herbs are remarkable," the wolf said. "At first there was pain, but not much. Afterwards only warmth. How will we know that he has been transformed? When will I see the fruits of this ritual?" "Patience," the raven replied, leaning on her walking stick and looking into the flames, her true eyes sparkling beneath the mask's spheral ones. "I know the spirits of the woods better than I know any child of man. The ritual was performed, and the prisoner consumed the flesh of another human being adorned with the natural herbs and magics that are shared in the pouches around both of your necks. Your instrument has been unsheathed, and it will not stop until those you have marked have all been fed between its teeth. If all has gone well, that which we have set in motion will make itself known soon enough. You may remove your mask now." The wolf raised its hands and pulled the wooden mask from its head. What lay beneath was the handsome visage of a 20-year-old man of obvious American Indian heritage. Tribal paint adorned his face and was starting to run as he had sweated in the midst of the ceremony. His hair hung in a long braid to just below his shoulder blades, its color as black as a coal mine. His eyes were of deep brown, but held intensity few men twice his age could ever have hoped to have boasted, a bitterness and sadness that bordered on lunacy. These were the eyes of an obsessed, haunted man. "You have no doubts?" The raven had removed her own headdress and placed it on the ground. In her eyes was a fathomless black hole of hidden knowledge and mirthless good humor. She was ancient, bent over the walking stick she now held in both withered hands, and her face bore the lines of countless summers. Her white hair hung in a dry braid that looked like it had the consistency of a bale of hay. She spoke well, despite the few teeth she had remaining in her mouth. "None," the young man said, his voice as cold as the depths of winter. "My parents' spirits scream out for vengeance, and I have sent the beast out to give it to them, no matter the cost." "Of course," the witch replied, as if she had known the answer all along. The hooting, coupling things around them continued to cavort, until their reverie was shattered by a howl that reached them from somewhere deep in the woods. When it did, everything stopped, as if a switch had been flipped. The drums stopped, the dancing stopped, the fucking stopped. As the dregs of the tortured creature's wail dwindled to silence, all movement and sound had ceased, save for the roar of the bonfire. The old woman cocked her head as if listening to a voice only she could hear, and then smiled her broken picket fence of a smile. "That," she said, gesturing towards the woods where the howl had originated with a gnarled finger that was so arthritic it seemed to have ball bearings rather than knuckles, "is the sound of the great engine you have set in motion, roaring to life. It will not stop until those you have marked for your vengeance within the medicine bag are no more. Your enemies will know death, and that death will be terrible in ways that modern men have long forgotten. They will remember what it was like to be prey, to be hunted, and finally devoured. You will receive the vengeance denied you by the white men, and your parents' deaths will be paid back in kind, and in full." The judge, the cop, the killer, and the great man. Let the beast tear the land he stole from us apart, as well. The sight my parents died trying to keep from his greed. I will see it all washed away in blood and tears. At these words his hands snapped into fists, the cords of his forearms clearly visible, as if he had wished for the throats of those who wronged his family to be within his reach. His eyes focused not on the here and now, but on the coming days of carnage. "A personal item from each you marked for death, and the dirt from the land that was stolen," she nodded. "All will be as you have wished. The ground will be purified, and the marked will feed the Wytiko's hunger." "I thank you, Adiva," the man said. "Without you, this would have been impossible." "Save your thanks," she replied. "I have my own reasons for helping you, and dealing with magics this dark will take their toll on you as well. Trials lay before you, boy." He grunted. Any trials to come would pale in comparison to the ones that had led him to this moment. Let them come. She turned to leave, seemingly finished with him, and then paused. "One last thing, John Blackfeather," she said without turning. "You are now to be known as Ravenwolf." "Ravenwolf?" "That is what the spirits have told me." His namesake was one of the reasons he had sought her out for aid with his revenge in the first place. But if it made the witch feel better, he would let her call him whatever she chose. He was John Blackfeather, son of John Blackfeather. He bore his father's name with pride, but it was of little concern what the witch or her spirits chose to call him. If the spirits say so, then I am Ravenwolf. Adiva, seemingly appeased, continued on her slow way to the depths of the forest where she dwelled, where he had met her task complete. John turned, and then noticed that the creatures, the ones in the masks who he did not know, were still frozen as they had been when the roar reached them. Stock still they had stayed, frozen in that moment no matter what they had been doing. Every dancer, no matter how complex the maneuver they had been interrupted performing, remained thus. Every sexual act remained unfinished, mid-thrust, mid-lick. The flames were dying, and their light was diminishing quickly, the insubstantial flickers giving the illusion of movement despite the stillness of the fresco. Every masked face was turned to him, staring intently from their acts. It was unnerving, and all of a sudden John wanted nothing to do with these people, all of whom had gathered to perform on his behalf. He wondered if they were waiting for him to acknowledge them, perhaps even thank them. He opened his mouth, not even certain what he had intended to say, when they all moved as one, vanishing into the dark forest in an instant, awash in darkness so suddenly it was like they had simply ceased to be. John looked around, his heart suddenly beating rapidly. He wanted to be away now. He retraced his steps through the dark woods where they had staged this elaborate ceremony, far from the prying eyes who might object to kidnapping and such, and found his truck right where he had left it. Exhaustion had settled on him quickly, and when he finally made it back to his apartment he didn't even wash, just fell into his bed and was instantly asleep.